water is what we need for life. We wouldn't be here without water. We are, a gazillion percentages of water. Our being is water. And I think maybe that's why we're so connected with it or something. It's in us. We can't help it. I'm James Brenner. I'm a sculptor. I work with my mom, Liz Dodson, to make art pieces that talk about water.
My name is Liz Dodson, and I grew up here in Minneapolis, in South Minneapolis, and then lived in Bloomington, next suburb next to Minneapolis, and then later in downtown Minneapolis.
As artists, you react to your environment, what's around you, and I, like probably most people, have had an affinity for water for a long time, just how it makes you feel, the beauty of it, looking at lakes and rivers, oceans. So looking out your window every day at a beautiful river, that Mississippi River that flows through Minneapolis, can't help but have a strong influence, I think.
And with me, I grew up near Lake Harriet, and so that was a daily thing. I went there to have a swim. But now today, looking out at the Mississippi is where I draw my influence of water on my artwork.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, the walks that we go through here, they almost always go across the Stone Arch Bridge, see St. Anthony Falls, and watch the seasons as the trees drop their leaves, and you can see through directly to the river and really watch its flow and how it comes over the water.
And I see the St. Anthony Falls, and that is affected by the climate change from a freezing when it gets very cold, and then the steam rising from the water into the air when it gets extremely cold, and then it dancing with the lights when it's going over the falls. And it's a big rainy season, and it makes a vast amount of water at that time.
When I grew up, I didn't really want to have much to do with art because my mom was an artist, and kind of wanted to pull away from, do my own thing, be independent. And then later, I came to art in the back door. I was a painter and a theater set painter, and started to make props, and decided, I really like making three-dimensional things, working with my hands to create something. So I got to art the back door, and then Liz is the front door. She's the example of artist, and the example of really a life well lived. To have the opportunity when we finally got to work together, we both now bring our own passion of making art to something that we do together.
I'd always admired Jim's work, but I felt that if I took part in a collaboration with him, it would give a different dimension to our work.
The materials, I think, are driven by the idea, and some of the ideas are about us working together, to create something different, like Convergence, where we have, hundreds of these little glass things that hang down in the water. Melting ice at the top makes water come down them, and it comes to a pool in the bottom that has the video projection. I do work with glass and steel and light, fashioning that large plumb bob that the video projects into is a natural progression for that. Those materials that I've chosen are just what will be appropriate and what can make it work for that piece.
He spoke of his different materials, and with me, with the video, it's primarily using the same materials of a camera, number one, and sometimes with me it would be an iPhone as the camera.
Restoring balance, that's about women's rights and water rights.
That
right?
was the first Women in Water Rights show that we did at the University of Minnesota that had in total about 60 artists there, and ours was a primary focus piece. As you first came into the show, ours was straight ahead.
I do commission work, so that's a different type of work. I bring my own voice to something, but it has a prescribed set of parameters. And when I get a chance to work with Liz, it's working for a gallery piece that is nothing about, all the things that go into a public artwork. It's about addressing that idea that you want to do together. And so it gives me an opportunity to experiment or do things that I wouldn't normally be able to do with my normal day-to-day sculpture work. I'm usually making things that are quite a bit bigger and have to last for 50 years, and it's outdoors mostly in public spaces. But when we get together, it's just about, okay, we need, it's fun. We get to make something that's just for the making. The reason it relates back to our work is that the calming nature, the therapeutic nature of water, it's like we've had the same subject, water, but it looks at it from so many different perspectives, how it addresses the soul in one piece, how we want to activate people to affect change in another one, and how you relate to it even with your body, and then the scientific way that water works in our world. It has the evaporation that goes into the sky, it collects in the clouds, it rains back down, it goes across the earth back to the rivers, it evaporates. So there's this cycle that goes through, and a lot of the restoring balance is about how we as humans interrupt that balance that happens in this natural cycle.
Yeah.
And how do we work with nature as humans, being part of nature, to change it, to work not against it but with it. Also, another part of the work that is stuff that we've done together, and that work carries on or becomes part of the stuff that I do with the public artwork, and how that artwork is also related to the environment. And it the latest piece that we just finished, it's in a new public service building here in downtown Minneapolis. They selected 8 artists to do 8 floors. Mine is the police investigation, so they handle some pretty heavy stuff. In an effort to combat the stress element that goes on there, we're trying to bring the soothing, calming nature of water. So you see these waves very slowly, coming across, and you hear waves and rain, as it comes down, and then a brook or a stream. And it's just, it's pleasant. It kind of combats this high stress that goes on there. So, having those water elements being infiltrated even into that piece, but it brings nature to the public. One of the reasons I like public artwork is that it brings art to the everyday world, and that's a different audience than a gallery. The project of Hydro-Illuminata, where we did 4 workshops, and then they make a piece of artwork from what we talked about, and we then make molds of that we brought to the river and did an event that was a cast iron event. So we brought our furnace, put it by the banks of the Mississippi River, we built a dock that goes along it, we have a chain of 5 boats and another electric boat that we cast the metal into each one of these little boats, and the glowing cast iron pieces, and then later with some fire, We tow the boats around that go through the Mississippi River, and they create another element for a different piece of artwork, which is the photography, to capture these basically line drawings that are on the river, with fire and the molten metal. And we have the banks full of people, and there's a performance that was done in collaboration with the school that they came down to weave their way through the crowd, all these students, and it's just it was pretty cool to see what the ideas that we're working here manifest in a performative event. The Green Light Project in Northeast Minneapolis is an example of how art can come together with community to affect change in the environment. The community was asked to conduct energy audits on their houses that would conserve energy, produce energy by conservation, and the goal was to save enough energy to power the high school. The sculpture changed in color from the red-orange at the base level all the way to the blue-green once we reached the goal 100%. It was a community effort. There was websites produced, iron pours. We put in lawn medallions into their yards. It was really a fantastic experience. The hydrodynamic project gave me an opportunity to work with scientists in the Mississippi River to study the flow of water and how it moves through turbines that produce electricity. These turbines are almost identical to the large wind turbines, and how wind or air moves, the different velocities, and how efficient those propellers are is virtually identical to how water moves through it. And what we did was take the points of data of these different speeds and velocities of how this fluid is moving and gave it a visual representation. And this became the artwork. Hopefully the viewer goes a little deeper. They decide, oh, this is data from science. So it's giving science a visual form that is beauty, and then that science is speaking to the pieces of equipment that it takes to produce electricity from a natural form, these wind turbines and these fluid dynamic turbines that are in the river. The Let It Rain project is within a larger campus that is called the Green Campus. The reason it's called a Green Campus is because it uses alternative ways of collecting solar energy and then collecting water. It's like a showcase for the environment. And so we created an artwork that kind of spoke to this green campus. So I chose to represent just a very simple form of clouds raining in an abstract sense. So we have the Let It Rain tower, if you will, that has 3 ovals with a whole bunch of chains. And around the Let It Rain tower, a field of grass. And then to frame in that space is a long wall of Corten steel, and within that wall is a glass river. Where this is in Minneapolis is on the edge of the watershed district. So from the rain that comes to that area actually ends up in the Mississippi River. I think there are multiple layers to meaning, or what I hope somebody will take away. One is straight up beauty, just looking at the piece and how it works, and hopefully conveying something that's pleasing to our aesthetic, and I hope it's pleasing to theirs. Then that's the initial, take on the piece. And then diving in deeper to looking at the video and how it interacts with the sculpture, maybe thinking what is their meaning for that? What are you interpreting? How there's a plumb bob, which is very universal for establishing a balance point, or what is linearly straight down, interacting with this video that has different aspects of water and how how that works in the world. So it's not a direct message like a billboard, but more like a poet would do with poetry, you know, describing something, and I hope that it brings your attention to it, and hope, you know, if we're lucky, maybe it'll open your eyes a little bit differently in how you look at the world in reference to that.
It's a new perspective on climate change that we want them to actually get the feel of it in their heart. And so that's what we want, is for them to internalize that message so that maybe they go on from there to become active in some way on climate change.